Hello beautiful people, my name is Sage. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I post vintage-inspired junk journal related content on a weekly basis. And to all of my existing subscribers who've been with me, thank you so much for your love, support and encouraging comments. I appreciate it all so much. Let's get on with today's video. Today we are going to be grunging up some acetate sheets. The way I discovered this technique was actually a happy accident when I had dropped some tea onto my acetate on a project that I was working on some months ago. And the only way I know how to cover up my mistakes while crafting is with inking. Doing this left a really grungy effect on my acetate, and so I began experimenting using tea, coffee, and rubbing alcohol to achieve different effects. In today's video, I am showing you 4 techniques. For this project, you will need acetate or transparency film. I'm using the brand Octago. I got these off of Amazon. A sheet of regular printer paper. 70% isopropyl alcohol. A spray bottle, preferably one that sprays a fine mist. An ink dauber with new domed foams. If you don't have these, then a makeup beauty blender should work just fine. Ink in the color of your choice. I'm using Tim Holtz's Distress ink in Antique Linen, Gathered Twigs, and Vintage Photo. Spray stains and oxide sprays. If you don't have these, then just experimenting with ink pads should work just fine. My spray stains are in Gathered Twigs and Antique Linen, and my oxide spray is in Vintage Photo. And lastly, some paper towels to clean our daubers and our workspace. Before we get started, here are 2 examples of what we can achieve with these techniques. I forgot to film myself mixing the solution, but you want to mix 1 part alcohol with 1 part water into your spray bottle, and we're ready to start grunging. Also, I cut my sheets into squares for the sake of this demonstration, but you can definitely grunge up a full sheet in one go. Firstly, you want to start by finding the tacky side on your acetate sheets. I do this by spraying some of my solution onto my mat, dipping the corner of my paper towel and gently swiping across the bottom end of my sheet. If you find a stain or a smudge, this is your tacky side. Our first technique is the spray and dab technique. Starting with my Antique Linen Distress ink pad, I'm smudging the ink down onto my glass mat. I am now placing my acetate onto my mat and lightly spraying a coat of my alcohol solution onto it. I'm simply dipping my dauber into my ink and lightly dabbing on my sheet. The heavier you dab, the darker the ink transfers. I will be using this sheet to show you 2 different colors, and so I'm repeating the process till I cover up the right half of my acetate in the first color, Antique Linen. To clean your dauber foam, spray some of the alcohol solution we made onto a paper towel and press firmly down onto it in circular motions. This helps remove both the ink and the tack from the foam for future use. I am now using Vintage Photo. As you can see, I sprayed my solution onto my acetate thinking that the tack had dried up, but this left me with too much solution on my sheet, and all I'm doing to take off a bit of that liquid is using a piece of paper, laying it flat down and wiping across to lift up the excess liquid. I'm then peeling off my acetate, and this should give me a damp tackiness, which is what we want. This time I decided to add some alcohol directly to the ink on my mat, and I found that this works much better if you want a slightly darker effect. As you can see, the ink transfers a lot easier and more consistently. I don't want my dauber foam to get sticky, so I'm making sure to clean it once I'm done. When working with ink, whether ink pads or spray stains, it's important to let the acetate dry. You can air dry or use a heat tool. Just be sure not to hold your heat gun too close to the acetate or focus the heat in one place for too long. This could warp the acetate sheet. And here's the look that we've achieved. Our second technique is the spray and smush technique. Spray your choice of ink spray stain onto your mat. Once again, I'm using antique linen and gathered twigs. Add a spritz or two of the alcohol solution and gently place the sheet of acetate over it. If you don't have spray stains, you can smear some ink from your ink pad onto your mat and spray alcohol. This works as well. Allow your sheet to sit for 30 to 45 seconds. Grab both sides of your sheet and lift it straight up. Lifting the sheet from one side to the other might roll any of the wet ink onto the edge of the sheet and won't give you the desired effect. If you find some empty spots like I have, simply spray some alcohol onto your mat and wipe away any tack, and then repeat the process. Spraying down your spray stain or ink, spritzing alcohol, and placing the acetate back. I'm laying the sheet down and picking up the ink left on my mat and filling up the empty spaces. And here's the look that we've achieved. Remember that once again, we've used ink here, so don't forget to dry your sheet. Our third technique is the spray and smush with oxides. This technique is pretty much the same as the previous one, except we are switching out spray stain for oxide spray. For this technique, we don't need any alcohol solution, just spray some oxide onto your glass mat and lay your sheet over it. Give it about 10 to 15 seconds and lift your sheet off. Allow a few seconds for your sheet to air dry. And here's the effect we've achieved with the oxide sprays. And lastly, my favorite technique of them all, the spray and smush with the non-stick mat. I will be using the non-stick mat that comes with the Tim Holtz glass media mat. Please note that adding ink and oxides along with alcohol does stain your mat, but these mats are replaceable. I will leave a link in the description to the non-stick mat for anyone who doesn't own the glass media mat by Tim Holtz, or for anyone who's looking to find a replacement. The reason I'm using the non-stick mat is because it has a woven texture to it, and on placing my sheet down onto it, it creates a really cool effect. All I'm doing is spraying down my oxide, laying down my sheet of acetate, and gently applying a little pressure with my finger in spots where the ink is spread to. This helps transfer that woven look onto the acetate. Peel and lift your acetate. And as you can see, it has this beautiful grungy effect to it, almost like a canvas texture that I absolutely adore. I forgot to give mine a few seconds to dry, and it glued itself down onto my drying sheet. But look at the amazing transfer I got. This could give you amazing results for backgrounds. It didn't transfer too much ink, so I'm still left with a gorgeous piece of acetate that I can use in my projects. Side note, you can also achieve this effect with inks by smearing your ink pad onto the mat and adding alcohol, placing your acetate down and lifting. And here's a quick look at what the effect looks like with ink. All in all, I had a really fun time experimenting with these different techniques, and I absolutely love how it turned out. What do you think? Do you like this method of grunging up transparencies? Would you use these techniques in your projects? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video helpful, please hit that thumbs up button. I do hope you'll enjoyed watching. Stay tuned for more fun junk journaling ideas and inspiration. And thank you so much for stopping by.